Okay, so I'm gonna go over a lot of information here. I'm gonna try to give you some ideas on how I would take the notes if I were you. Because I know note taking is not something that you get a lot of practice at anymore. So here we are. We're going to talk about Greek and Roman mythology, and we're going to start off with the Greek version of it, and then move on to the Roman version. And first of all, we're going to talk about their explanation of how the world begins. So, in the beginning, according to the Greek mythology, there's something called chaos. So I would start there at the top, chaos.
I don't know how to spell it. Oh,
It's right there. That's why I give it to you. So what does chaos mean to you?
Like really crazy.
Crazy. Stuff's just random. So things just flying around, doing whatever. No order to anything. And so that's the idea of this, is that there's just this randomness, nothing going on, nothing structured. Then out of the chaos, we get Gaia, which is Mother Earth created. So we create Earth. So here's how I would start doing this. I would start off up here with chaos. Lola, did I spell that right? Okay. Then, now this one I don't remember if I spelled right. Gaia. How do they spell Gaia? Gaia.
Yeah, you spelled it.
G-A-E-A. Okay. All right. And then maybe I would over here, I would put Earth. Something like that. Okay. So instead of writing out, first there was chaos, then from chaos we got Gaia. Instead of writing that out, I would just write it structured like this. Come on. Okay, so we're going to be doing sort of a family tree kind of thing. So we get Earth. Then Earth gives birth to Uranus, the sky. So we get Earth, then the sky. Does that sound at all familiar with any other creation stories you may have heard? No. Where first you get the Earth, and then the sky, and the heavens, and then light, and then the animals. And so that's kind of like the book of Genesis in the Bible. So of course I would go Uranus. Okay, so far kind of a straight down family tree. Not a lot of branches yet. It's going to get worse. Remember, this is Greek, so it's going to be weird. So Uranus rains down on Gaia, so the sky rains on the earth. And when we get rain on the earth, what happens? You get plants and animals and water and all that kind of stuff, right? So up here, oops. So here I might say something like, plants, animals, etc. Might do something like that. Then Gaia and Uranus have a lot of kids. First, you get the 12 giant titans. There were 6 boys and 6 girls. So again, as is not uncommon in Greek, you have Gaia giving birth to Uranus, and then Gaia and Uranus make kids.
Wow.
Yeah, right?
Oh, man.
So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these are titans. And so far we know that we have 6 boys, so I'm going to put 6 bees. and 6 girls, 6 G's. That's what I would do if I were doing it. So trying to do a family tree when it goes straight down like that's a little difficult. If we were doing something a little more traditional, like I would have my mom and dad, and then a little more traditionally, it would look a little more like that. So the two come together and then have kids. This way, we had to kind of branch off sideways to get to the kids' part. All right, back to the story. Later, they have more kids. They get the Cyclopses, which are one-eyed giants, and 3 were Hecatoncheires. That's a fun name, Hecatoncheires. Monsters that have 100 arms and 50 heads. So we get 3 Cyclopses and 3 Hecatoncheires we gotta add on here now. So we could go 3 Cyclopses and 3 Hecatoncheires. Having lots and lots of kids. Now remember, Greek parents don't always show the same affections that we think of when we think of our parents, maybe. They actually do love some of their children more than others. So what happens is that Uranus, the father, remember this is going to be a repeating theme here. The father hates 6 of his children. He doesn't like them because they're too ugly. So he throws them into Tartarus, which is the deepest pit of the underworld. So he throws them down into the underworld to get rid of them because they're so ugly. Okay? Now, this doesn't necessarily have a family tree orientation, so this you may need to make note of somewhere around your tree, next to your tree, beside your tree, something like that. Yeah?
So they threw all of the Cyclopses and Hydroides?
Yep, and Hydroides, yep.
Oh.
The 6 of them into the underworld. The Titans he loved because they were, beautiful Titans. Now again, if you're taking notes, I would not write down this exact thing. You shorten it, make it into your own. Think of perhaps how you would text that or snap it or whatever you guys are doing, that you would shorten it up. Just give me the basic facts. You could do something like Uranus hates the C's and H's because they're ugly, throws them in underworld. Something like that. Of course, the mother is upset about that. Again, continuing theme in Greek mythology. The dad's usually a jerk. The mom is usually loving and caring. So she urges the Titans, the other kids, to overthrow Uranus and get the brothers out of the Tartarus. So she tries to get the Titans to overthrow Uranus. Well, you're going to get the whole story here. So Cronus, who is the youngest of the Titans, is the only one who decides to attack his father. He attacks Uranus with a sickle, which is this big harvesting knife-looking thing, banishes him from the Earth. So this is why Uranus is a planet out in space now, not the sky anymore. Cronus replaces his father as Lord of the Universe, but he was just as cruel and did not free his brothers from the Tartarus. He then marries his sister Rhea, and they have lots of kids. So again, these funny Greeks. So we can give a name to one of the boys here, was Cronus, right? And one of the girls is Rhea. Now they're going to get married and have kids. And perhaps you could do something like you do this and draw a line here and say banished. Something like that.
How do you spell that one R lady?
R-H-E-A. R-H-E-A. Rhea. Cronus. We doing all right? Cronus is afraid that one of his own children might overthrow him, just like he overthrew his father. So as, they have lots of kids. So as each of these children is born, he swallows them whole. So remember, he's a giant titan and his children are teeny tiny, so he can do that. Also, the children were gods because they're born of two titans. They're gods. They're immortal, so they can't die. So they remain alive in his stomach and just keep growing.
That's not right. What's going with that? Imagine birthing out an entire baby.
Rhea, again the mother, kindly mother, is horrified about this. And finally she tricks Cronus by feeding him a rock wrapped in a blanket instead of the baby in the blanket. She gives him a rock in a blanket. And he swallows it down because he doesn't chew. This baby is Zeus. Okay? So the baby that gets away is Zeus. And he's raised on the island of Crete, which is a real live island in the Mediterranean near Greece, by gentle woodland nymphs who fed him honeyed milk. When the baby would cry, the Curetes, his guards, would clash their weapons together like they were practicing battle to hide the crying from Cronus. And that is a picture of what part of Crete looks like.
Wait, do you want us to just like write down?
Well, I would do something like, so we're going to have lots of brothers and sisters, right? Blah, 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 blah. And then one of them here, maybe you make it the end one, is Zeus. So if we know that one of these children of Cronus and Rhea is Zeus, some of you guys can probably already figure out who some of the others are going to be, right? Some of you know enough of the Greek mythology already. So Zeus grows into one of the strongest gods because, for one thing, he's not inside his father's stomach. And Rhea, his mother, wants him to overthrow Cronus. Again, sound familiar? Rhea gave Cronus a drink that made him throw up the stone and all the other children. Among those were Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon. So these, you can start putting on these lines here, next to Zeus. Those are his brothers and sisters. We good? All right. So the children were all reunited and gratefully joined their brother Zeus. Zeus frees the uncles, those monsters, the Cyclopses and the Hecatoncheires, from the Tartarus, and together they've prepared to fight the rest of the Titans. Now, if we think about what's going on here, we have Zeus and all his brothers and sisters, plus the Cyclopses and the Hecatoncheires, fighting against the rest of the Titans because they're upset because Cronus has been overthrown, right? So that's one of their brothers has been overthrown, so they're all upset. So these gods and monsters are fighting against the Titans. Now, those Cyclopses, those one-eyed monsters, they're really, really good at making weapons. So they make some special weapons for the gods to help fight against the Titans. They give Zeus a thunderbolt. Now these you might need to go, if you're not familiar with what each of these gods and goddesses have, you might need to come off to the side. And Zeus is, thunderbolt, little Harry Potter sign, and so on, and come down and just say what each one has, if you're not familiar with them. So Zeus gets a thunderbolt. Anybody think of any of the other gods and what their tools were? Yeah. Poseidon controls the water, and what does he use to control the water with? His trident. Ooh, look, that was even the next one. You guys are good. So Poseidon has a trident that could split the seas or control them or make storms or do whatever. You know another one? Oh wait, because trident's a big word. Everybody got it? Hades gets the helmet of darkness that makes him invisible to his enemies. So Hades can become invisible. Remember, Sky was Uranus, and he's gone now. So he doesn't control that. He's the underworld, actually. Hades is. Yeah, kinda. Sure. For 10 years, a war rages between the old gods, the Titans, and the new gods, the Olympians. We're going to talk about why they're called Olympians in a moment. At last, Cronus and the Titans are defeated and thrown into the Tartarus to be guarded by their own 100-armed brother. So their Hecatoncheires is back down in the Tartarus guarding the other Titans. So out of this, you could just say after 10 years, the Olympians win. That'd be good enough. You don't need all the fancy stuff in there. Something like that. All Good? All right. So then the universe gets divided among the three brothers. Zeus, the king of the gods of heaven and earth. Poseidon, god of the seas. And Hades, god of the underworld. So as some of you have probably already written, Zeus gets sky and earth. Poseidon gets the sea. Hades gets the underworld. So how many of you are familiar at all with Greek stuff like this? Okay. So what I'm gonna kind of go on with here is most of this is sort of standard issue storytelling of the Greek origin of the earth. But then from there, you can get all kinds of different versions that say that, Zeus does this, or Hades does that, or they can do this, or they have that power, or whatever. Because it is a mythology, it changes, and there are many, many versions of it, and all kinds of stuff like that. So if I move on here today and move into something that you're like, no, that's not how I heard it, that's okay. It's okay that it's not exactly the way you read it in Percy Jackson or whatever, okay? Because there are different versions. This is just the one that I'm going to present to you. All right, so the reason they're called Olympians is because the Cyclopses, again, those clever builderers, build a big palace on Mount Olympus, which again is a real life place in Greece. It's the highest mountain in Greece, which makes sense. If you're going to come up with a myth about gods, you would probably have them on the highest mountain in the land, which was Mount Olympus. And he lives there with his brothers and sisters and 6 of his own children, and Aphrodite. Gods dined on nectar and ambrosia, the food of the gods, and they could change shape and form and mingle with mortals and generally mess things up. Okay? That's what they're really good at. How would I put that? Well, if I was over here, I might put something like Mount Olympus. Oops, I got my backwardsness going here. They all live together. That's about all I would put on that. They moved to Mount Olympus and lived together. You don't need to know about nectar and ambrosia. Anybody ever have ambrosia? It's almost that time of year again. Thanksgiving dinner, you gotta have ambrosia. It's that fruit salad that has marshmallows in it.
I don't think I've ever had it.
Yeah, that's ambrosia. So each god and goddess has a special power. There are gods and goddesses that live on Mount Olympus. Again, here's Mount Olympus in real life in Greece. That is not an actual picture of Mount Olympus. Okay, so that's not what it actually looks like. So, we said we were doing Greek and Roman mythology, and they are pretty much the same thing. And again, you're going to get different versions from one and the other, but they're pretty close to the same thing. And as a matter of fact, we're just going to go through and talk about Greek names versus Roman names for the same gods. Okay, so borrowing the religion from the Greeks, the Romans just changed things from the Greek language to the Latin language, and this is what we end up getting. So Zeus is the same as Jupiter, king of the gods, and quite a player. He's always messing around. Hera and Juno are the same. They are the queen of the gods. She's always very jealous because her husband's always playing around. Now at this point, You could like move on to another page or a back page and just start making a table. You could try to be labeling these on your little family tree if you wanted to, but you probably run out of room. Something like that, yeah.
So I have like this much space left. Do you think if I just fit that on like one side, do you think I still have enough room for all of this?
We're gonna have, I forget exactly how many, but probably 10 of these or so. So, and you could just keep going to the next page too, it doesn't matter. Now, what you're doing right now, you're not necessarily turning into me. But just like with the Shinto, you're gonna need it for that summary that I told you we're gonna start working on Wednesday. So the information out of here, you're gonna have for that, okay? Now, I will end up putting this slideshow on Classroom so you can go back and clean up anything you're missing. But I think it's best if you try to get this, the majority of it as we're going through it, so as I'm talking about it, it makes sense to you as you're writing it down, rather than just trying to go back and remember what did we say. So if you miss something, a spelling or something like that, this will be up on Classroom later on. You can go back and clean it up. Good? All right, so a little more on Zeus. King of the gods, women loved him and he loved them back. Again, he was quite a player. He's always going off and having affairs with other people. His symbol obviously is the lightning bolt. And as it said earlier, the gods could always change shape. So it wasn't as though he appeared on earth looking like this all the time. He could be whatever he wanted to be. And that was often the time how he would trick women into being with him. Hera, or Juno, is the queen of the gods. Goddess of family. Her symbol is the pomegranate. Anybody ever have a pomegranate before? Describe what a pomegranate is like.
Well, I had like a dried one. It looks like a
Okay, so you had dried pomegranate. They're sort of pinkish red. Anybody ever cut one open? If you cut open a pomegranate, it's just like a billion seeds inside, and you sort of eat the seeds. That's what you're eating. So think about, why would a pomegranate be her symbol?
Because she's the goddess of the family, and all of the seeds are like a little baby.
There you go. So all the seeds symbolize growth and new plants in that case, but children, offspring, in other words, fertility. Brothers of Zeus, Poseidon in the Greek, Neptune in Roman. So we had King Neptune in Little Mermaid, right? No, not. Right? So have you noticed though, obviously, that the Roman names, you've seen these before? We had Uranus in the Greek, Neptune, Pluto. Think of any others that end up becoming planets? Jupiter.
Mars.
Mars is going to be one. So actually the only one that's not named after a god is Earth.
I just said fleet.
So Poseidon or Neptune is the ruler of the sea, responsible for natural and supernatural events. Well, I'm going to go over who they are.
No.
See, so all you did is, I'm just telling you this, I'm telling you that with cool little pictures. So anyway, this says the same thing as it has cool little pictures. So if you are a sailor, or if you are a merchant, or if you live near the sea, obviously Poseidon or Neptune are going to be very important to you. You keep them happy. So you do offerings and sacrifices to Neptune to make sure that things go well for you. Hades or Pluto, supreme ruler of the underworld, god of the dead. The symbol is that helmet, which was his helmet of invisibility.
I still see him though.
So if you want to get to, when you go to the underworld, it's Hades who becomes the ruler of where you are.
Why are all gods like super muscly?
Because they're scary.
Yeah, because,
Ooh, you never hear.
that's probably sort of a, hero modern
Well, you
take,
never seen like, oh my God, there's Jupiter at Planet Fitness.
right? So that's the cool thing about being a god, I believe, is you don't have to work out to be muscly. You just go, I'm muscly. Because I'm a god, I can do that.
Just like,
They'd have to be to survive living in your father's stomach, wouldn't you?
no.
Ooh. Again, this is going to be on Classroom, so don't freak out about it. Main thing here is I wanted to show you the differences in the names. If you've heard of Aphrodite, you've heard of Venus probably. Here's one that stays the same, and I don't know why, but Apollo is still Apollo in Greek and Roman. So again, don't worry about getting all this written down right now. Ares is Mars. Artemis is Diana. Athena becomes Minerva. Demeter is Ceres. And this is going to be one we're going to talk about a little bit more in a few minutes. So we'll talk about that one. Hephaestus becomes Vulcan. Have you ever heard of anything being vulcanized? We vulcanize rubber now. That's how we melt rubber to get it to stick to things. It's been vulcanized, which he's the god of fire. It makes sense, right?
Is it Pan, the god of the fire?
Pan is the god of music, and he plays his little flute. Yeah.
Can we just, can I just not write this down right now, but then at like home or later on, can I just look at
Exactly.
this and write that down?
Exactly. Hermes is Mercury, Hestia is Vesta, and Dionysus is Bacchus. And we're going to talk about a few more of these in more detail. So again, don't worry about getting all these down right now.
It's so cool.
You're done already?
Oops, not that one, this one. So, Aphrodite or Venus is the goddess of love and beauty. She is the mother of Eros. Does anybody know who Eros, what the other name for Eros is?
Why do you have to show us this?
I didn't. There's black bars on it. Duh.
Imagine always wearing that. That would stink.
You can wear anything.
The other name for Eros, anybody know?
Venus.
No, Venus is his mom. I mean, the Greek stuff is really weird, but it can't be the same person.
Oh.
It's Cupid.
Stupid?
Oh.
That'd be a little baby.
The red hair?
she is married to Hephaestus, who was the god of the fire and the forge, and he makes weapons. But again, these Greek gods can't stay very true, so she is actually fooling around with Ares, and her symbol is the dove.
That's bad. All of these
Not
guys
very
are
nice.
cheaters.
Apollo, god of the sun, music, poetry. Artemis' twin, and he can prophesize. What's that mean? He has the gift of prophecy. What's that mean?
You can like guess the future.
Well, even better than guessing, right? He can see the future, right? Now, his symbol is the lyre, not L-I-A-R. The lyre, which is this harp-looking thingy here, because he's the god of music.
Wait, don't change it yet, please.
I'm gonna change it.
Wait,
I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna change it.
Change it.
I'm gonna change it.
are we gonna
Here it comes. I can feel it. I
do it?
can feel it.
Wait, why is he so skinny and all the other guys really like? Cause he wants to be.
Because he's the music god. He's not like fighting things or.
Doesn't do anything except play music.
No, Jack, as they're fighting, he just plays the intense music.
That's right.
It's like Mad Max. All the other dudes are beating each other up, and the guy.
Ares or Mars is the god of war. Obviously, he's not very well liked by other gods because he's always wanting to fight.
He's wearing the helmet, but I can still see it.
Wrong helmet.
On his hat.
Remember, that's Hades that has the invisibility. This is Ares.
Fur on his hat.
And I'm going to stop there for today, and we'll pick up tomorrow. Remember, so we're finishing this tomorrow. Make sure you bring your notes back tomorrow so you don't have to start over.
I could not hear a word you said. And it was the gold one.